Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Designated Designer. Today, we have a very, very special guest that I am super excited to share with you. I met this guest on one of Vicky's co-working calls. She is Design Some More. She's super awesome. I mention her almost every episode at this point. If you guys aren't already subscribed to her newsletter, please go ahead and do so because she hosts these very awesome co-working calls where we get to talk with other creatives and kind of share ideas and help each other out and make awesome connections like this one. So without further ado, I am very excited to share with you guys Thomas. He is a graphic design, web design kind of extraordinaire, and he's been participating in these co-working calls. So do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Definitely. So yeah, I'm Thomas. You can also call me Tommy if you want. I do not mind. Or Tom, I get a lot. And yeah, I have my own business called Launch Web Design. So I primarily do websites and e-commerce, also a little bit of graphic design as well. And my focus is on making the website process fun and not stressful. Because for a lot of people, getting a website done can be a very negative or stressful experience. But when really it is like your key business milestones, we want to celebrate that and make sure that you feel supported and empowered. So yeah, that is my kind of business. Outside of the business, I do a few things. I'm very bad at golf, but I do love golf. I do singing. I do a little bit of cooking and baking as well. But the thing that a lot of people may, I guess, not know about me or may be surprised to hear about is the fact that I'm 17 and I'm still in high school. I'm doing my last year of school while owning my business, which I've done for the past 3 years now. So yeah.
That is so exciting. And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to bring on Thomas to the show, or Tommy. I'm really excited to kind of share this with you guys because when I met Tommy on the co-working calls, I was blown away when he shared with all of us his age. A lot of the other creatives on the co-working call were also blown away. I think it's just the coolest thing to see somebody that's so young kind of really setting themselves up for a successful future so early on. And there's so much stuff that I would like to ask him, and I'm sure you guys also would like to know. So I'm going to ask him a couple questions about, what it's like to kind of be a business owner at that age, some of the challenges he faces and things like that. So the first question that I really wanted to ask you is, what are some of the challenges that you face kind of running your business at your age, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, it's definitely brings a very unique set of challenges. I think there's definitely some benefits, which so I've had to definitely learn how to reframe. I used to think that being young was like a bad thing, and that it's so hard, and I'm young, so I shouldn't be charging a lot, and I'm young, so I should just be charging really small and feel a bit discouraged. But I had to reflip that and go, being young is actually a strength in the industry. So I think some of the challenges, I think first is literally just how you can feel in the industry when you are kind of up against a lot of adults and all of your clients are adults, people like 2 times your age, which can be, interesting, but reframing it in the fact that when you're young, you're innovative, there's not a lot of risk involved. You really have the whole world ahead of you and it's an opportunity to grow and learn. Actually, I have an interesting one. I have like a story from a sales call. I had someone once say, my son was also the same age as you, and he works at McDonald's, and he gets $15 an hour. So can I pay you that instead, instead of $30 an hour? And back at the time, I was only charging 30 an hour, so I was actually quite cheap at the time. So she really should have taken up that deal, but yeah, she ended up not being a good fit. So yeah, there's definitely challenges around age, and it's just finding the right kind of people and the right types of clients to actually support you. And there are a lot of people who, like you, Jen, who are extremely supportive. And I feel so grateful for that. But also just, I think, being open to learn. And I did a traineeship. I was feeling really discouraged about my design skills. So I actually ended up doing a traineeship at an agency, which was honestly amazing just to learn all of the website design skills. And then I guess the final challenge is just being in school and trying to build a business at the same time. Both can feel like a distraction. The business can feel like a distraction while I'm at school, and I got people telling me to focus on school, and then while I'm focusing on my business, and I feel guilty because I have schoolwork to do. So it's definitely a hard one balancing both, and it would be similar for people starting a business with a full-time job or even with uni or something.
I really never thought of is like the age thing with having to charge. differently. Like I
Mm.
don't even know why I thought of it. You know, you're so confident on the co-working calls, and it never crossed my mind that you can face that kind of challenge because of your age, you know, not really being sure where you charge because some people look at you and look at your age and immediately think because you are that age that you're less experienced, or you know that you're not worth as much, when in reality you're worth just as much as everybody in the co-working call. And you know, you do need to charge that, and having that confidence at that age to really come to the table and feel confident in those rates, I have so much respect for you. I think that that is so cool that you're able to do what you're doing and have confidence that your skills are there despite your age is just one of the coolest things in my opinion. So
Thank
the next
you.
question that I really wanted to ask you is, what made you start your business so soon? Because I feel like for a lot of people, they kind of decide to start their business after they've worked in industry, whether they've gone into the factories for the 9 to 5 or the corporate offices for the 9 to 5, which sometimes both can feel similar. And they kind of get chewed up and spit out from the industry machine, and they're tired and they want a better way of life, and they're just kind of going through the motions and they're exhausted from that grind. And that's kind of when they decide to walk away and start their business for themselves. But you really never had to experience that. So I was just really curious, like, what was the reason you wanted to start a business so soon?
Oh, well, initially, I guess my story, initially, I was actually making websites for school projects. So I was always into technology. I always loved technology. And I was making websites for school projects, and someone reached out to me, found me, and said, "Oh, can you make me a website? I'll pay you." And it wasn't a lot of money, but to me back then, like it was a big thing. And I actually did a social media, an Instagram video on this because I was actually looking back on that website and comparing it to my most recent one and seeing how much I'd grown as a designer. So yeah, that was honestly kind of what exposed me. And then I was like, oh, I really like this. Like I want to do this. And it kind of initially was, I guess, not an escape from the 9 to 5, but kind of an escape from school. When I was a bit younger, I was struggling a lot at school. I guess sometimes a lot of entrepreneurial people, what I've heard, don't usually have the best time in school because it's not really suited towards, entrepreneurship. It's more suited towards the 9 to 5, getting you ready for that, which is okay. But yeah, so it was kind of initially an escape from that as well, and a way for me to actually go into the real world and do something really cool, do something really different, but also something that like I could build and something that was exciting and also a challenge for me mentally and cognitively. I always tried to embrace the business side as much as the design side as well, because that's honestly really important to grow a business. But yeah, that is kind of my story and how I started. And really where I started growing the most was after I did my traineeship and when I got the help of a really good mentor just to learn a lot. And she was like, okay, you need to look at your prices, as you said before. And I was severely undercharging and I was so scared to put my prices up. She even tells me today I'm still undercharging, but I think just about being confident, and yeah, I always want to charge to where my abilities at. Looking back when I started, my design skills were not as good, so that is okay. Yeah, that is kind
Wow.
of my very summed up story.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I really love that you brought up that sometimes when you are geared for entrepreneurship, you don't always have the easiest time in school. It's really interesting that you bring that up because I also experienced that. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on. You know, it was very weird for me because I never felt like I got along with the other kids in school. I never felt like I really fit in. You know, we would all go outside to play after lunchtime for recess, and I never really got along with the other kids. I found myself talking to teachers more often. You know, all the kids would be on the playground and I'd be sitting next to the teacher picking their brain about like some kind of theory or hypothesis. I really gravitated towards that learning, and that got me picked on. You know, I was immediately put as the nerd or the teacher's pet, you know, a lot of that kind of stuff. But once I did step into entrepreneurship much later in life, those kind of things start making sense even from all those years ago. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because if there's anybody out there listening that is in that age bracket, you're still going to school, you're kind of experiencing those things, and you really don't feel like you fit in, it's okay. It's okay if you don't feel like you fit in the moment, because there will come a day where you will find your people, whether it's a design group, a co-working call, or just being in a business networking group where maybe you really will feel like you finally found your people. And that's where it happened for me. Like all these years, I'm 27, I'm going to be 28 in October. And my entire life, I kind of felt like a lone wolf. I never really felt like I fit in. I never felt like people understood me. I always felt like I was kind of like, they wouldn't understand what I was saying or grasp the kind of concepts that I was kind of spitballing or whatever it was that I was talking about. And when I joined my first like business networking group, my local chamber, and I start talking to these other business owners, it was the first time in my life that I was like, oh my gosh, like you guys understand me. Like I feel like I fit in somewhere. And it was just a really cool experience. So even if you're feeling that in school, you kind of feel like you don't fit in, don't let it discourage you. There will come a day where you will find your people, you will find your tribe, and you're just going to grow and thrive and flourish in that kind of environment.
Mm. Definitely. Like I
Yeah.
think when I've like at the start it was actually really hard. I was going through a rough patch. Now I'm actually quite lucky. I've kind of passed that, I guess, rough patch. And a lot of people at school actually are very supportive. I run a business club now at school. I got to help other people get into the industry
That's
as
so
well. So
cool.
yeah, so honestly it's still a little bit tricky because if you don't run a business, you don't actually understand what it's like to run a business unless you're doing it yourself. I also find I have a lot of friends who are either older than me or younger than me. And I also think that is okay because I'm used to working with people, whether that was at the training or traineeship or um, you know, clients in real life. I'm used to collaborating with people in different ages, and I think that is also totally okay. So I think I am pretty lucky around that now, but and initially it was definitely initially an escape. A couple of years ago when I was in year 9, year 10, kind of the rough times of high school, everyone tends to go a little bit feral. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It really is so true though. That time in high school, I feel like so many kids are either like doing drugs or wasting away on video games or, just doing these things that it's like opposite of pursuing a good future. And here you are like pursuing that good future, setting yourself up for success. Like I think it's the coolest thing.
I really want to
Sure.
talk about like the teen hustle culture just a little bit because it's
Yeah,
very
for
apparent.
sure.
Okay, so the teen hustle culture is kind of around some of these young entrepreneurs that you may come across on Instagram, and a lot of young people um you're constantly bombarded with these seemingly successful young 17, 18 year olds, 21 year olds who usually I describe as wearing a black hoodie in a dark room, grinding, eating steak and going to the gym all the time.
Right.
But yeah, and that is a way to grow a business, but in my opinion I think business is more about creativity and doing something you love, and I think that will you're more likely persevere and get through by doing that instead of doing drop shipping or doing trading or something. But yeah, I think as young entrepreneurs you get the impression that you have to be a millionaire by 18 and you have to do these types of businesses and always be grinding, and but honestly, like if you don't have a good balance in life with anything, too much of anything is not a good thing. So I guess it's also just making sure you're not feeling the pressure. And I even as adults, I think you'd experience it as well as a creative where you're bombarded with a lot of successful creators all the time. But honestly, I think it's going actually like I can learn from these people, and these people are where I'm going to be at, in a year or 2 years time. And a lot of the successful people like Robin and like yourself are actually very, very kind. So I always try and be kind back to people who are, at the starting line as well. 'Cause it's definitely a journey of ups and downs. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it warms my whole heart that you kind of equate me to Robin as far as like successful, because it's tough. I started my business, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I don't have a huge following, and I don't really have a ton of people that know about me, but I work really hard and I pour my heart and soul into everything that I do. I'm very passionate, very energetic, and I love to just be kind. It's my biggest thing that if you smile at somebody or you hold the door for somebody, they're more likely to smile at the next person or hold the door for the next person.
Mm.
That's really how I like to live my life. So it makes me really happy that, to hear you say that. I think the coolest thing to see come full circle is Robin gave me a chance on her podcast, and that was huge for me. That was something that was just, it was one of the biggest things that I accomplished that year, this year. It was one of those big things that I was really wanting to do, and she gave me a chance. She had no idea who I was. I was this strange girl from Pennsylvania in the United States, and she gave me a chance to be on her podcast, and it really did a lot for me. Not even that I got a ton of followers or I got a ton of views. I wasn't really looking for that. I really was just looking to make this connection, and she gave me that chance to be on her podcast. And after the podcast, I felt so energized. I felt so like electrified. I was so excited. I was so creative that day. It really changed a lot. It gave me confidence, and to be able to pay that forward now to you and have you on the show and you be a part of my podcast, which I was inspired to start one because of Robin. It's just really kind of cool to see that stuff. And especially in business, you don't want to be super greedy. I always like to try to give my clients little goodies and extras
Mm.
and bonuses and things like that. Like if it doesn't take me a ton of time, I'll put together some quick like branded illustrations when they weren't necessarily expecting it or things like that. But I do want to mention there is a line to be drawn because I actually
Yeah.
just had this experience this week with a client that reached out to me and they needed like an address change on an envelope. And I told them, that's fine. It'll be a $99 repackaging fee because by the time it takes me to answer their email, respond to them, get the
Mm.
new address, locate the file on my computer, launch it, my program has to load, I make the change, then I go through and start to prep all the print files all over again, and I'll save it out in Illustrator and then I run it through Photoshop and do a compression. So that way any like transparency effects or anything like that, they'll print okay. So I use two creative apps in order to export these files. It takes me like a full hour to make that change. So I was like, it's going to be $99 and
Mm.
my hourly rate is actually $120. And my
Mm.
client responded to me and they were like, $100 question mark, next message for 4 lines of text. And I was like, you know what? I have done extra things for you. I have gone above and beyond the entire time that we worked together. And for you to kind of come at me with this level of disrespect, I'm not going to tolerate it. I was like, you know what? All of my other clients right now are paying my hourly rate of $120 an hour happily. And if you really want to fuss about $99 for 4 lines of text, that does take me an hour. My current hourly rate is 120. So now if you still want your files, you can pay what everybody else pays. And they were like, okay. So you really have to kind of be confident with
Mm.
yourself and make sure that when you are giving goodies and bonuses and things like that, that you're still being respected, that you're still being compensated, that you're still being valued. Don't ever let
Mm.
somebody like try to get free stuff from you in a shady kind of way.
Oh, no.
But those little like extras and bonuses, they really, really do go a long way.
Yeah, I think when I was starting, like I was a bit more, I guess, gullible to the lower end of the clients, which luckily all my clients actually a lot of the time now, like on the sales call, they don't even care about the price, like they're just fine with it, and they're really lovely to work with. I think at the start, I had people asking me for mock-ups in the initial quote, and then they would ghost me. So I learned that lesson the hard way. I think for me, it's more just being flexible. So, if I'm doing a 7-page website package and I actually have a client right now who's a counselor, and she was actually my counselor at schools, and she now is off starting her own business. So it's actually really, really cool doing a website for, I guess one of my old teachers. I've actually done a website for another teacher at my school as well. So it's really cool doing those kind of things. For her, she actually only needed 5 pages in the end, so we had 2 extra pages. So what I did was I did a very basic logo up for her and did that. So I think it's just being flexible because I was still actually technically being compensated for my time. A lot of
Right.
people may just say, okay, sorry, you're not using the 2 pages, like, you're not going to get the money back. She actually offered to pay extra, but I said, look, it's okay. I know you're like, it's okay. It's going to take me the same time, if not less time than 2 pages anyway. But yeah, I think that envelope story, like a lot of people think that, you know, why does a website cost, $4,000 or $3,000 when I could just go onto Wix and it's just pictures and text? What they don't realize is the amount of research that goes into it and the amount of strategy sessions and client calls and then getting all the content together and the images together and putting it together. And when people see the final product offer you in case like an envelope, they don't realize like there's a bunch of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to actually get there. And usually, the more simple something looks, the harder it actually is to execute. Because to make something simple looking without it looking generic or boring is actually a very it takes a lot of time. Yeah,
Yeah,
print
absolutely.
files are print files are definitely yeah, can take forever because you want them to print correctly. I recently did a banner for someone and that was quite daunting because it was a huge banner and I was making sure that it would print crisp and there were no errors. I didn't leave any like sample text in the wrong place 'cause that would be bad. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, print really is, and that's the thing. I really love that you brought that up, is they don't know what goes on
Mm,
behind the scenes. That really can change everything. And I think it's really great now that we're on social media. We're able to start sharing what actually goes on behind the
mm,
scenes, and we can start to eliminate some of those clients that are like, why is it this price? I don't get it. Social media really did bring that into the picture, and I'm thankful for that we can kind of start sharing our behind the scenes. But they don't know, like, it has to be in a certain file, like color mode. You have to make sure you're in the
yeah.
right color mode. You have to make sure you're in the right resolution. You have to make sure that you're exporting the right file type. There is so much stuff that we have to know, and some of us had to pay for that knowledge. Like, I went to university, I had to pay for that knowledge. Some of us, we learn as we go, and we pay for those lessons by making a mistake and learning from it. Sometimes
Mm,
that costs more than real money. So, making those
yeah.
mistakes and learning from them and gaining that knowledge, that is what is makes our work so worth it. That's what
Mm,
makes our value worth it. So I think that it really is, they don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and having
yes.
that understanding does change a lot for sure.
It's just super informative of your process. Something I know Christy Campbell, she has a really good YouTube video on her process. I'm actually going to do something similar for my own website process as like for my onboarding. But also something my business coach actually said is when you're pricing your products, you need to add a knowledge tax or an experience tax on top of the pricing, which is literally, what qualification or how much experience do you have? So yeah, I guess that kind of covers that. You know, you're not just paying for the end product; you're also paying for the person designing it. And you can get a bunch of different levels and makes of cars, and that's the same with design. You can get a bunch of different designers. They're all going to drive, but some may be more comfortable, some may get more attention than others, and it just depends on what what's right for the business at the time. So
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, I love that analogy. That's such a good one. I love
Because
that.
everyone's driving their cars, and I think with websites and even branding as well, like people also you got to like maintain the car. You got to maintenance it, and you can either go to a really dodgy mechanic, or you can try doing it yourself, which may not end well, or you could get the manufacturer someone reputable to service it. And without petrol and without servicing, your car's gonna break down quite quickly. So it's the same with design, like even with websites or like updating it, I guess with graphics and branding, it would just be making sure they're implementing it and making sure it's always current and up to date and all the assets are looking good and cohesive across every single visual touch point. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another really great point to add to that is being able to speak in their language, I think is a really big thing that I kind of face in my own line of work, because I work with a lot of like home service people. So, kind of people that come into your home and they do plumbing or they do HVAC with air conditioning and heating units, or, it's a very hands on, like tactical, blue collar type of trade. And a lot of times when I talk about strategy to them, like I had this one client, I was kind of coaching them on the best solution for a promotional item that they want to use. And we ended up going with a trifold brochure. But one of the things that I mentioned to them is, I forget what it was that we were talking about, but he was talking about using some kind of thing for a certain application, and it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't the best fit. I think it was because the original brochure that we're redesigning, it was like an 8.5 by 11, brochure, but it was like kind of like a booklet. And I said to him, I was like, listen, people aren't really going to carry around something this big at trade shows and things like that where you're going to be appearing in the community. A trifold is perfect because you can set it out on your table. It's pocketable, so a lot of people just stuff it in their back pocket, and they're more likely to get it to their vehicle with them when they leave instead of like a big, huge book type thing. And I was talking to him about that kind of application and where he understood it but couldn't quite understand it. I said to him, I was like, listen, it's like trying to use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail. And that stuck with him. Being able to kind of use those industry terms and speak in their language also does have a lot of value. And helping your clients, kind of like educating your clients as you're doing design for them, I feel like is so important because they don't know this world and we don't know their world, but we're here to kind of learn about each other's together and then bring this awesome piece of, design or whatever it is to life for them to suit their needs. So I think that that's a really good point that you brought up about, the car analogy
Mm.
and being able to kind of speak in their language. It's just so great.
I think like educating clients is really important. A lot of people may have had a lot of people have really bad experiences in the past and can be very nervous. And a lot of, some designers will just go, I'm better, I know best, I'm going to do this. At the end of the day, like it's the client's business and their business is really important. So for me to actually take the time to actually tell them, this is why I've done this. This is why, a client's about page, I said I set the background color to this color because you were talking about books and it looks similar to a book and it reads similar to a book, and that's why to tie that in. And even I remember you were telling me about sorry, not me, but in your podcast episode, one of your episodes, you were telling about cars and scent diffusers as like business cards or something like that, I think. And yeah, like different ways to be creative. I loved Robin. I'm going to bring Robin back into this again, but one of her posts I loved was all her business card ideas, and it's something I'm considering when I'm getting my new cards on, is how can I make it so unique that people actually want to keep it and not just put it to the side.
I love the points that you brought up about the business cards. I think that that's super awesome. And shout out Robin as much as you want. I love that girl so much. She's amazing. For anybody out there listening that doesn't already follow Robin, please go follow her, Brands by Robin. Subscribe to her newsletter. It's pretty freaking good. And she's just a really awesome creative. I learned so much from her. She's really a source of my inspiration. And, she's just doing a lot of really good stuff in the industry. So I always shout her out when I can too.
So kind to me because like I've messaged her before and she actually replies and she actually is really supportive and she likes all my content, and like her, Robin, Vicky, a lot of the creators I've met through the co-working call are just so supportive. And even if you're in a powerful position as in with social media, just to have that support is honestly just amazing and very empowering.
I really do feel that, it just is such an amazing space because I really didn't have a ton of followers. I don't have a ton of exposure. Not a lot of people know who I am. And when I was on Robin's podcast, she had mentioned to me about the co-working call that her friend Vicky does these co-working calls and I should join. And it was crazy because it took that moment for me to realize that maybe I could belong somewhere like that. When I looked at it before, I looked at something like that and I said, oh my gosh, that's a bunch of creatives that have 40, 50, 60, 70,000 followers on social media. Like, I don't belong there. And then it was Robin saying that to me that was like, no, you should come. You should be a part of this. And I was like, should I? Like, I don't know. And I joined, and it's so welcoming. No matter how many followers you have, no matter how much experience you have, if you're brand new, if you're a seasoned vet, there's always like, it's so welcoming and so supportive. And I love every part of those co-working calls that Vicky has. It's done so much for my own personal growth, networking, connections. It's so great. So the one thing that I wanted to ask you was about your business and it impacting your social life. Since we're talking about being social and a part of these co-working calls, do you ever find that your business impacts your social life, whether it's just in your personal life or in your school life, in a positive or negative way?
Okay. Um Oh, okay. This is an interesting one. I think one of the key things I never want to be is a business owner who's always attached to their emails and phone calls all the time. I think it's really important to disconnect. This is why I actually ended up using the prize money I got from an award to actually get a business phone, because I wasn't sure if I needed it, but honestly, very, very helpful. This guy saves me a lot of time because it helps me to disconnect, you know. So I think that is an important thing. Is definitely it's hard for me because I want to just keep telling my family and my friends all the time about what I'm doing in my business and these new ideas I've had and all these things. But it gets to the point when they're like oversaturated and like, okay, stop, stop, stop. Like we don't want to hear anything more. I think socially it can be challenging because when you are running a business, you're usually thinking to quite a high level and you're working with people. You have to be mature. You have to be very mature, I think, to start a business well. I feel like I am a pretty mature person, especially for my age, without sounding too arrogant there. So I think it can be hard when I'm working with all these adults and working really well. Then I have to head back into school where it's just everyone sitting in class and people being silly, and it's like I sometimes struggle a bit with all that socially. I think positives around socially is the fact that you are able to meet so many people, and even I went to a university open day and chatted to some of the entrepreneurship scholarship students there, and honestly, we just got on so well. So I think there's definitely there are definitely people out there in similar situations where when you meet them, it's you can form really, really good quality friendships. So I think there's definitely ups and downs. I think the important thing is making sure you're still doing things outside of the business and things and skills that are not going to make you money, not going to be super helpful. But so for me that was golf. So I play golf, and a lot of my friends who play golf are actually younger than me. But one of my friends who I play with is actually a really good friend because we just get on so well and we're like-minded. And I think school makes you think that you have to be friends or have to be with the people exactly the same age as you. But the reality is, when you're in the business world, you are collaborating with people from all different ages, and no one actually cares. Like a lot of people don't actually care that I'm young. They just actually say, I've had people say, you've done a better job for my website than adult designers. Like I'm good, and it's like people don't actually mind, and I think it's a strength personally. So yeah, I think, but it's actually funny because golf initially was something I was just doing. And I was spending my money on from my business because golf is not cheap. I got my own golf clubs and I was paying for lessons and going with my friends and doing that. But actually, 3 of my clients I got through golf, so funnily enough. So
No
yeah, I
way.
have a fourth hopefully future client as well who I got referred to from a golf client as well. I would say like client who honestly spends the most with me without that sounding bad. I've done 2 websites for him. He's on my top support plan. He's very, very supportive, and I met him literally through golf. So I think so things can come up in unexpected places, but the importance of having things outside of the business, where if you're having a bad time in the business, you still have friends and ways to disconnect, I think is very, very important socially and emotionally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really cool that you get clients from golf. And for anybody that plays golf, they're definitely a higher tier client. You want those kind of clients. So that is really, really cool to hear. But there definitely is a balance to everything. Like, I
Mm.
really struggled with. I put everything into my business, and I actually, one of the guest episodes that I did with my friend from high school, Shelby, we kind of went our own ways after high school and we reconnected during our business startup phases. We got chewed up by industry, burnt out. We kind of wanted a different way forward, and we were both very like-minded in high school, and we started our businesses 2 days apart. She filed her LLC paperwork on April 21st, and I filed mine on April 23rd of the same year,
Oh wow.
which was crazy. We didn't even know. But when we reconnected, we kind of found that out. And, just being able to kind of be in that support system with her. We were talking about hobbies and how when we started our business, we dumped everything that we had into our businesses. And it was very intense, straight out the gate. Because at this point, we were in our adult lives. We had adult bills. We have houses to pay for. We have groceries to pay for, all of this crazy stuff that's really a lot of pressure. And you kind of just have to figure it out. So we were going through all those motions and trying to start everything, and it was just very intense. So we had to dump everything we had into our business, and
Mm.
we both describe similar situations where we got to the point where people would ask us, like, so what do you do for fun? And our knee jerk reaction would be, oh, my business is doing amazing, and my business is this, and my business is that. And we kind of forgot, we lost sight of the things that we enjoyed to do. She loves to do photography, which is the company she ended up starting, but she also has a lot of other unique traits. She likes horses and she likes being creative, and she was always painting and all of this other stuff. And for me, it was like, I forgot how much I loved rollerblading and flying kites and all of these weird, quirky things that I used to love to do. People would ask me, like, what do you like to do for fun? And it was always, oh, my business, 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 business.
Yeah.
So it is really important to kind of find that balance. And I'm so happy to hear that you're doing it so early on, because for me, I kind of had to experience the negative side of it and realizing, like, oh my gosh, I'm losing sight of who I am as a person because I'm dumping so much into the business, and then kind of learning to find myself again. If you could kind of get that situated straight away, that is the best thing. And I'm super happy to hear that
Mm.
you're doing that.
But honestly, I've been there, done that. Like it did get to a point where like all I had was my business, and I was so invested. And actually, now that I will say I'm successful in my business. It's still really fun, but you actually get less time for the fun stuff in the business when you are doing a lot of the client work. You have to set time aside to work on the business. But yeah, making sure it's so 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 important. And like I'm so grateful for my girlfriends for getting me into golf, because it's one thing where it's a literal complete escape. You put your phone in your bag, you're not connected to the internet, and even though, and it's something that it's going to take me years to get good at, and it's really hard. I think it's good for me to have that kind of challenge. With a business, you're always wanting like those quick results, and you do kind of get those, you get those speedy. Yes, it's a long-term thing, but it's constant, and then something to actually, it takes the time. And yeah, I think, yeah, honestly, it's so so important, or else like you will burn out. I have burnt out before, especially with school. I have pushed myself with schoolwork, and still doing my schoolwork to a high standard while also booking clients. And yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a juggle, but it is one of the caveats of being a young business owner, is that you do have to manage both. Um, but still making time for yourself, because it's really your pyramid. You got yourself at the top. If you're not taking care of yourself, then for me it's myself, then it's school, then it's business. But if I'm not taking care of myself, none of the school or business can happen at all, because it's just gonna go off the rails. So
Yeah, I mean, and it's like that with everything in life. And it took a long time for me to realize how important it is to take care of yourself. Because if you're not at your best, nothing else around you will be, whether it's schoolwork or business or family and personal relationships. Like, everything else around you will fall apart if you're not taking care of you first. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because that's super, super important.
okay.
So, one of the other things that I really wanted to ask you is, what are some ways that starting the business has positively changed your life for the better? I know you're still really young, but right now, for where you're at, is there anything like groundbreaking that you're like, I would never be doing this if it weren't for the business?
I honestly think just um being in the real world already, and pushing myself, it's a challenge, but I've learned so much already at a young age. I've been offered, if I want to next year work full time at the agency I do my training at, I could. Like, I already have, and for someone at 17 still in school, like, for me to already have probably now nearly 500 hours of industry experience, is pretty cool. So I definitely think, like, it definitely gives me a little bit of a head start in the careers world. I think, especially now my business is 3 years. Next year I can definitely hopefully make it a full-time thing. So like there's the financial benefits. Although what people don't understand is that, yes, I'm making money, but I'm investing it all back in, or I'm saving it for my next idea, or something that may come up, or an emergency. Recently I got my business trademarked, which is not fun because that's very expensive. But it has really helped me grow as a person and meet really like-minded people, and be more confident as well socially. Yeah, like even I've met the designer who trained me, Kat, and now she's starting to enter that kind of freelance world, and it's really cool, helping people, and being helped by other people as well, and learning from other people. So I think, yeah, definitely like the learning part, It's obviously better, I think, in my opinion, than working at McDonald's or working at Kmart, which I guess would be the US equivalent of like Walmart or something.
Yeah.
You know, definitely, for me, like putting the time in, it's kind of like at the start, all my friends were like, making a lot of money from their jobs and stuff. But I think, it does get to the point where you do start to grow in that time that you invest in, a business is an asset. I learned to treat it as an asset. It is something now that I have that no one can actually take away from me unless I do something stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is awesome, and I really love that you said that because I'm experiencing the same thing in my business. When I first went into business, it was negative $30,000. The first year in, I had to save that in order to jump into business. And my entire first year in business, all I did was spend money, and it took a long time. Like I started like here, and then it tanked all the way down, and now it's starting to kind of come back on the other trend. And you have to build momentum. So now I'm finally starting to see that upwards trend instead of a downwards trend, which is always a good thing in business to see it going upwards. But
Yes.
I have a lot to kind of build back up now, and
Mm,
I'm later in life. I'm looking at buying a house and doing all of these like big adult things, and it's hard because now I am like at the bottom and I have so much to build back up all over again because you make all that money in industry, you save it up, and then when you go into business, you kind of start from scratch all over again. To see that you're kind
mm,
of building that as you go, it's only going to prove to be super beneficial the longer that it
yeah.
goes. And being able to kind of like put it back into the business, putting it into savings, putting it where it needs to go in order to continue pushing you towards success, because in industry it is a cap. Once you reach your senior position or whatever position, you don't keep getting raises forever. There's usually tiers, or they usually keep you at a certain set price. So to really have control over your own growth and where you're looking to go and what you're looking to achieve and all that kind of stuff, just all of it being in your own hands is so, so awesome as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think it's the best part.
Yeah, and I think like unfortunately graphic designers, I think web developers it's a bit better, but for designers like they're very underappreciated, undervalued. I honestly think design, in my opinion, is actually harder than coding because design you got to really, really think creatively and it takes a lot of your energy. So yeah, it's definitely like when I'm looking, I currently do copywriting and I outsource that to my amazing auntie in the UK, Kathy Unsworth, who writes crime kind of novels, really cool books. So shout out to her. But yeah, I actually pay her quite well because that just feels right to me as part of my values. It's like I want people to be fairly compensated for the amazing work and experience they have. And I think it's definitely something in the industry where it can be hard, but also some people just don't want to have their own businesses because, it could be too much or not right for what they want to do, but making sure that in the best way I can, like supporting them and you're really valuing their work for me is really important. And I think the other thing you mentioned with the whole growth thing and you starting to see that upwards trajectory, I think for me it's actually been a challenge this year because I'm really starting to see that growth and I could literally drop out of school and go in and grow like crazy. And it is hard because I'm booked out and I've had to actually stop taking as much work and being really selective now because I just physically don't have the available time on my hands. And that can be really hard because all you want to do is just grow, grow, grow. So it's definitely hard to actually go, I need to pause until next year. But really for me, it's only a couple months now and then I'll be, then I'll be done. So yeah,
That is so
definitely a few
exciting.
interesting.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't even think of that it's kind of like a little bit holding you back because for
Mm,
me at this point I'm totally freelance, I'm totally full-time on my own. So really the only thing holding me back is other commitments. If I just joined a BNI chapter, so the Business
mm,
Networking International, and that has a lot of commitments. So I
mm,
wanted to kind of push myself and grow myself in that regard, and I was willing to let go a certain percentage of being able to dedicate that time to my business because I know I need to grow a little bit more. So
mm.
those are really the only things that kind of like hold me back. And I want to say hold me back loosely because I'm just focusing on growing a different part of me. But to kind of hear you talk about like school and the way that it's working and you just want to go all in on the business and having to wait a little bit, I mean, I can imagine that that's a little tough to deal with.
Definitely. And there's a lot of young entrepreneurs that I guess it's an interesting one because it's getting more popular entrepreneurship. It's why I'm doing the club in school and why my school is actually quite interested in it because it is starting to become more popular. There are young entrepreneurs that drop out of school or that their parents invest or are very heavily involved in their business. I'm very proud to say that my parents have not really, apart from obviously like providing me with a house and stuff and being supportive because that is priceless. But I've built my business myself and I've invested all my own money. I've earned it from all myself, and I'm very proud to say that because there are a lot of young entrepreneurs that get a little bit of help from their families, or even the fact that I'm the only person in my family to actually have a business. So like, I don't really have a lot of other people like around me that are able to kind of help me. So but it just makes it more really cool achievement. And I'm not saying that people that have help it's a bad thing, but that's just my personal kind of story.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool because same. It was really
Mm.
bizarre. My entire family, we're all very like traditional, very like farmer type of people, you know. In the area that we grew up, it was very much like you would farm your land and it's the farmer mentality where they don't really go on to do these kind of business owner types of things. It's very much like you stay in your own town, you stay in your own community. People really don't leave, they don't travel the world. It's very like small town thinking, you know. And when I was starting my business, like I didn't have any money from my parents. They helped me through college. They helped with my tuition in college, and that is priceless. They provided me with a house, helped me with my tuition for my education, and I'm very, very thankful for that because some kids can't even say that much. But when I started my business, it was all personally funded by me. I didn't have them leave me an inheritance or anything like that. It was very much just I'm doing this and I have nothing to start and I'm just going to build it as I go. And I don't have any like business owners in my family either. So that kind of felt really isolating. And it's hard when you have all these really big ideas and you love your parents so much. Like, I love my mom and dad more than anything else on this entire planet. And sometimes it's hard because I'm excited about business and I'm like telling them about my ideas, but it is small town thinking. And sometimes they don't really understand what I'm talking about or the idea. And it's like, yeah, it sounds cool and I'm proud of you, but I don't really get it. And sometimes that can be hard to hear because you love your parents so much and you're like, oh, why
Mm.
can't you just be excited? But it's because they don't necessarily know about business. And that was something really
Mhm.
hard I kind of had to grapple with when I was
Mm.
going into everything. And it wasn't until I found the co-working call and I found amazing creatives like you and Vicky and Robin and everybody that's in the call and got to really feel that people heard me, understood me. I was communicating and people were hearing me, all of my crazy ideas, even the ones that my parents couldn't understand. And, that kind of stuff is just really, really awesome to have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like the thing with business is like every single week you're gonna have a new idea or something's good, even every day. Like and so like literally I had one day where I was sick from school and I was at home. I got three separate phone calls out of the blue and got three leads. I was like, and like I had gone like a month without getting any leads, and then suddenly I was at home one day and I just got phone calls, which I never get. I never get people like I never usually it's never through a phone call, but it's funny because yeah, every single week there's something different going on, a different idea, and it's very fast paced. And some people think you're a bit crazy because it's like I'm doing this. Actually, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Oh, I'm doing this idea, or I want to implement this, and it's like you know. But the business people, you can share things and you can get thoughts, and definitely like my business mentor who actually also started a business while she was in high school. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and she's actually really helpful. She gives me, she does really help because she is actually a top mentor. She does, usually charge quite a bit, but she helps me out, which is really nice. And it's just learning from people who have been in your position before and who can save you like 10 hours of time, doing something, or just or even just validate that you are in the right place, or just being alongside and seeing people's achievements as they grow their businesses. I remember the first co-working call, it was from Robin's story because I followed Robin, and I just got Instagram and I was like, oh, and I was feeling a bit overwhelmed because I'm like, there's all these people and they're going well, And I joined, and the classic Google Meet, it makes a little sound when you like enter the room. And I saw Robin, and I'm like, I saw Vicky, and it was Nicole. That was actually not. It was just it was at the start, so they were quite small, and I was like, whoa, these are like these people, as you said, that I've seen on social media. And the first question I asked, and it felt really, really stupid at the like afterwards. I'm like, oh, hang on, but I was literally like, well, like, hang on, how did you guys like be successful? How do you guys like get these like high paying clients? Like, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the amount of growth since like that first call, which was probably like a year ago now, which is kind of crazy, or I don't know how long ago it was, probably a year ago nearly. The growth of myself, but also all of the other creatives as well. It's really cool, and it's definitely different being in a call of completely adults and being the young one. But as I was saying, like there are some people who are really supportive, and there are other business owners who may feel threatened or may just not genuinely support it. But luckily, you guys are in the supportive bunch, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's just the greatest part because I really do feel like there are some creatives out there. Like with everything, there are good people and there are bad people. There's
Mhm.
creatives out there that are going to build you up and always be your biggest cheerleader. There's also creatives that, they really haven't healed their inner child and they're going to tear you down. And, with the bad comments and the cracks about working at McDonald's and things like that. But you really do just kind of have to let that roll off like water on the back of a duck. You kind of just have to let that go and understand that you are doing something that is quite admirable and it takes a lot of guts to do what you're doing. And sometimes people are just going to be haters, but luckily
Yeah.
we have a really solid group of super supportive people. And, I'm so thankful to be a part of it just as much as you are. One of the last things that I wanted to ask you today is what are your thoughts on the idea that it's never too late to start, even despite your early start in business? Because I'm sure that you're aware being super young and very successful might be a bit discouraging for some people starting their business in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or even beyond. What are your thoughts about the idea that it's never too late to start, even though you're so young?
I think, well, look, it isn't too late to start. I think everyone's gonna have a really unique way. If you talk to business people, they're all gonna have an interesting story of how they got started. It's not usually like you wake up and you go, okay, I'm gonna start a business today. Like, I mean, some people it could be like that, but a lot of the time, everyone has a really different story. And I think being young, I just it's working for me and I'm really enjoying it, and it means that you can also be older and still start it and still be successful. And that's just different. You're going to be around different environments, different business environments, and it doesn't mean it's a negative thing at all. Like I look up to so many people who are starting their businesses, and my clients are starting their businesses as adults, and I support them as well. So that's how my business is successful, because adults are starting their businesses. And because if I was helping other teenagers who are starting their businesses, like they would not have like the money to really afford my services. I think don't be discouraged. Like for me personally, starting a business young has been amazing. It's also presented a lot of unique challenges, and especially if you're older and you already have experience and you have that maturity, people I feel like it is maybe a little bit easier to get people to invest in you and trust you. It's definitely, for me, it takes a little bit more of a wow, like I have to really impress these people with either sales skills. I don't like to call it sales skills, I guess just that initial first impression, and really really communicating my value from early on. um so yeah, I think honestly, do not be discouraged. Any stage of your life you can start a business, whether you're young, whether you're old. Honestly, it doesn't really really matter in the long run. People care about what you can do to help them. They don't really, and you'll also find, like for me, I get some very like energetic entrepreneurs who really resonate with my vibe as a young person. But if you're a bit older, you will find your people that work with you, and you don't have to go like you won't go from zero to hero in like a couple weeks. It will take time. I mean, there are ways you can accelerate that, whether that's with money or just really spending loads and loads of time. um So I think, it's definitely something you can start and you can build. And honestly, I have not regretted it. You probably have not regretted it either. So
It's really important to kind of bring to light that when your business and entrepreneurship journey calls to you, whenever that happens, you'll be there to answer. It really does call to some people very early on, and you just have a very clear understanding of who you are and what you want to do in life. And sometimes it takes other people some figuring out, and there is no right or wrong answer. I really do believe that you can start whenever. I really believe that it's never too late to start. I think it's super important because if everybody was scared that it's too late to start, well, then we wouldn't have any business owners to work with. So I
mm,
think it is really important to kind of bring that to light because sometimes you're meant to be in your industry for however long. For me, there's a lot of valuable stuff that I learned in my journey and in my industry and working corporate jobs that I use every single day. And had I not experienced if I didn't go on my journey in the exact way that I had to, it would have been totally different. So even if you're in your 50s, 60s, some people even in their 70s will go off on a limb and start a business. And it really never is too late. Do what makes you
mm,
happy. Do what lights the fire inside you. Do what makes you feel fulfilled. And if you have this calling to help people through your business, do it. Don't be scared. Just start. It's never too late to start and just keep building because, everybody kind of follows the same journey, even though when you started and you said about that upwards trend and you're starting to see that growth, that happens with everybody, and it really doesn't
mm,
matter where you start. As long as you put the
mm.
time in and you care and you're passionate, you'll always succeed, no matter your age. So just start. Do it broke, do it scared, do it without any support. Just do it.
Yeah, and look, like if I could do it at 17, I actually said this on the Instagram video, it's gonna sound really cringy, but if I can do it at 17 and 16 and 15 years old, like you can do it as well at like an adult age, like to be honest. Anyone can bake a cookie. You can learn how to bake at any age, really. Like it's not, you know, if I can do it young, for me, you're lucky. Like I had to when you're under 18, there's a lot of hurdles you have to jump through. Like, I had to go to 6 different banks to find someone who would give me a business bank account. Like, literally, like, no joke. It took me a whole day and I was on the phone to all these different banks. And I'll get some people going, sorry, we can't help you buy. And that was so rude to me. There's a lot of hurdles that you do have to jump through when you're young to actually do things properly because I'm an advocate of being organized and doing things properly. Yeah, definitely never ever ever too late to start, and you can always try it, and if you don't like it, you don't have to keep doing it. Like it's not a lock-in contract. It's not like you're signing a job application with notice of leave. Like really, it is so flexible and such an exciting and creative journey to start on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate everything. I really appreciate your willingness to come on the podcast. I was so excited to talk to you. I feel like your perspective is so unique and special. I think what you're doing is so amazing and admirable. I'm so excited to watch you grow and thrive. I love being a part of this co working group. I love that we can all see each other grow. And I'm just so excited for your future. I think it's going to be amazing. I think you're going to do really great things. I'm so excited to see where the future takes you. And last but not least, I wanted to ask you where viewers can find you online.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So if you need a website redone, or if you have an online store, or you've been burnt in the past by a bad designer, you can always come to me. Or if you just want to follow along on my entrepreneurship journey as well, I have my Instagram account, which is Launch with Thomas, or my website is launchweb.com.au. I am Australian, so any fellow Australians out here listening, we can maybe play golf or something. You never know. But yeah, that is where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Thomas. Hopefully, I can have you back on for another episode in a year or so. We could talk
Mm.
about growth. We could talk about all of the changes and all of the transitions, from school into business and all that fun stuff. Really appreciate having you on the show. And I will catch everybody in next week's episode. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.